Thanks very much. I just want to start with working at Google allows me to see further into the future than most people can see. This is not only because Google's good at predicting the future, they make the future. So what I see there absolutely amazes me, and I just want to pass a little bit of this on to you because you're the ones who are going to be working and living in this amazing world that I just have a tiny glimpse in. Let me first introduce myself. My name's Anthony Mack. I've been working at the Irvine office at Google for 7 years. That's kind of a long time for people at Google. 90% of the people who work there have started since I started. I'm a senior software engineer, and I work on a project called Pulse. This is an internal project. Yes, we make apps for ourselves. I have 15,000 users, all Googlers. A Googler is a person who works inside of Google. And this is a part of the feedback system. I will talk about how important the customer is, and I'm a key part of the feedback system that we get from our customers. Let me also introduce Google. How many of you have heard of Google? I'm looking for someone who's not raising their hand right now. You haven't heard of Google? Okay. Okay. All right, so I cannot find anybody here who has not heard of it. So that's good, but you might not know too much of the details. First of all, it's 19 years old. Pretty young company, very young company. We now have 78,000 people. That amazes me. It had under 20,000 when I started. It's growing like crazy. We pretty much grow at about 20 to 25% year over year every quarter. We've been doing this from the beginning, even through the crash. Remember that crash? I don't. Google sailed right through that crash. It continued to grow at an exponential rate forever, bringing us to having 3 billion monthly active users. 3 billion. Anybody know how many people are on the planet? 7. 3 of the 7 use our products. That's why you've all heard of us. Bringing us to, and I'm very proud, we haven't done this in a year, but over the last 12 months, we have earned $100 billion. Okay, so these are just numbers I cannot fathom. I can't work with numbers that big. So I want to just sort of show you these two 19-year-olds. I got a 19-year-old student who works part-time and makes $10,000 a year, and we got Google who makes $100 billion a year. Well, in these ratios, when Google talks about $1 million, it's like the student talking about a dime. A dime. It's like, oh, better not drop this. Well, if I drop it, if I'm late for class, I might leave it behind, right? That's the scale we work at. Okay, $1 billion is like a Ben Franklin. A $100 bill is a sizable amount of money. You wouldn't, if you dropped a $100 bill, you wouldn't leave it on the ground. It's a sizable amount of money. You're only going to get 100 of those in a year. So you work very carefully with your $100 bill. Well, Google works very carefully with its $1 billion bills. That's the scale this company works at. So one of my hints to you is follow the money. It is amazing. If you look at history through the eyes of economy, it's a very different story. And that's true for any company you think of working at, starting, when you're dealing with things. It sounds terrible, but following the money gives you a whole new set of eyes to look through. Because when you look at Google, you see our Google search engine. Right? You see Maps. We have 7 products that has over 1 billion users each. There's over 1 billion users that have a Gmail account, who have an Android device, who use Chrome. This is the Google you know and love, and this is the Google Larry and Sergey built. This is the one we all think about. But you remember I said follow the money? All of those are free. And that last one doesn't make us any money at all. It's not free. When you buy a movie from Google, we pretty much give all that money to the person who produced the movie. So where's all this money come from? Any ideas? Advertising. That little ad. When you do your Google search, you see that little ad at the top. We get $100 billion from those. Google is an advertising company. People don't know that. They think, oh, it's a technology company. But if you look through the eyes of money, it's an advertising company. And this is something most individuals don't know, but every corporation knows. They are one of the largest advertisers in the world. If we're not the largest, I don't know. We have at least 2 million ish. I don't know, it's probably twice that by now. Don't quote me on that. But we have at least 2 million advertisers, people who have a company, just like all the companies you've heard, they get onto AdWords, they have an account, they say how many dollars per month they want to spend, and people just come. It's like a little machine. It's a machine you put $1 in and $2 come out. So you put another dollar in, $2 come out. Well, put $2 and $4 come out. That's what AdWords is. That's what powers Google. And one thing you guys should all look, if you start a little business of your own, you certainly should look into AdWords. But I want to show you something that I thought was very interesting. These are the top 10 companies by market capitalization, how much they're worth. Look at it back 20 years ago. We had 2 technology companies, and I only highlighted Intel because they make the chips that all the computers run on, but they're actually more a manufacturer. Microsoft 10 years ago was sort of the only top 10 company that had to do with software. This was yesterday, so I got these numbers from yesterday. Look at the top 5. Memorize that list. Those are the future companies. Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and Facebook. Those are the companies who have figured out how to use technology, and the stock market knows it. And of course, the same thing's going on in China. Number 7 and 8 are 2 Chinese companies. They're huge in China. The stock market. The stock market is betting on technology. The stock market is one of the best forward indicators. It's a leading indicator. Real estate's sort of how the economy is doing, and jobs is kind of a trailing indicator. You saw that during the dip and through the recovery. Keeping your eyes on the stock market is a good idea to sort of predict the future. So I want to talk about these 2 little guys. This is the past. This is I don't know if some of you probably weren't even around in 1998, but in 1998, these 2 guys, Larry and Sergey, started a little company in their garage, literally in their garage. That's the garage. It's actually Susan's garage. And very quickly, they started, they put ads on their page, started making lots of money, and they said, if we were motivated by money, we would have sold the company a long time ago and ended up on a beach. They were not motivated by money. That huge dollar amount doesn't mean anything. These 2 guys, and plus Eric, own half the company. Well, voting stocks. They're just insanely wealthy, but if you look at them, we all dress like this. They're just normal people. They're there because they love what they do. Let me talk a little bit about Google culture. So earlier on, they mentioned culture and how important it is. I can't stress that enough. When you are working for a company, look at the culture. A lot of people say, oh, well, I like what they do, or I like this thing. But when you go and ask a person who's working there, tell me about your day. What's it like to work there? The answer they give you is more critical than the how much will I make? What will we be doing? That culture is what wakes you up in the morning and gets you to work. If you have an overbearing culture that causes you to hate your job, you're going to quit. You're not going to thrive. So culture is everything. Well, Google started out in a garage. It was all pretty, scrappy, quick, fast. And today, it's almost the same. I don't know how we've done it, but we've kind of kept the small startup culture all the way to today. These are all real pictures. This is my micro kitchen. So every day I go to work when I want, a coffee, some M&Ms, an apple, or whatever. This is where I go. And the cool thing is that staircase in the background, when they built this building, they asked us, hey, anybody want to do anything cool and crazy in the new building? I said, yeah, let me put some lights on that. And so if you go there right now, that staircase is all flashing with all different colors of lights. That was me. I did that. It was like, it's kind of, I got a little bit of googliness in my building. Ping pong table's always busy. You can't see the popcorn machine. It's just, it's usually where he's standing. Anyway, every Googler is within 150 feet of a micro kitchen. You can get snacks day and night. The chef stocks the refrigerator with cool little things, always, yogurt this, and it's it's amazing. It's all healthy and tasty. I don't know how he does it. Anyway, there's puzzles. This is when we had that puzzle. There's games all over the place. We literally have slides. We have polls. We have slides in our building. I went to a site in Zurich, and it's really cool. You put your arm around this pole, and you can slide down to the floor below, just like the firemen. There's a ball pit. When I walked by this ball pit, I was like, oh, that's fun. I should jump in there. I saw the balls kind of move. And it's like, I'm looking down there, and this engineer pops out of it. He was lying on the bottom of the ball. I don't know. It's just, this is what our culture is like. This is what our spaces look like. And we're just about to expand in the building beside us, and the architectural people came and said, hey, you want to be on the committee? And I said, sure. You got any ideas? Oh, yeah. We figured out, okay, what's special about here? Oh, we're into family. They came up with this whole theme of backyard. We're going to be this family-oriented thing. So when you walk into our new building, it's going to look like you just walked out the back of your house. There's going to be tree house, bird house, or conference rooms are going to be up in a bird house. It's just crazy. It's just really crazy stuff. So let me talk about Google on a bigger scale for a second. Their original mission statement was to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. That's a hell of a statement. All the information in the world, that's a lot of information, but the universally accessible was something that's very unusual. The President of the United States to a homeless person all have access to a world-class search engine that can get you any information you need. That was a pretty audacious goal, and I think we've kind of pulled it off. And right now we're actually looking at a larger mission statement, basically help humankind, and we haven't come up with a new one yet. That's still our mission statement. But throughout the years I've been there has been this continuous theme of advice that have come from Larry and Sergey. And one of them is don't be evil. It's my t-shirt. It's amazing how many companies do not put on their list of things they want to do, stick to the law. Don't do anything that's illegal. Don't do anything that's mean or awful. Google really takes this to heart. I have seen many very profitable ideas be canceled because not even evil, it's just not a nice thing to do. We just wouldn't do that to anybody. So yeah, it makes a bunch of money, but it doesn't make sense. We shouldn't do that. Put the customer first and all else will follow. This is a statement that Larry said a long time ago, 10 years ago, and that's the way it is broadcast to the rest of the world. Let me tell you what it sounds like inside of Google. Every Thursday night, we have this thing called TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. Why? Because it used to be on Friday, but the people in Japan couldn't see it, so we moved it to Thursday, but it's still called TGIF. Every Thursday, I get to see Larry and Sergey and Sundar and Eric go and stand in front of a big audience up there in Mountain View where people can come up to the microphone and ask pointed questions. And believe me, anytime you see any bad news in the press about Google, we hammer those guys. It's like, why is this? What's happening? What's really going on? Stuff like that. So they constantly are talking to us sometime in the question and answer period, responding to our questions. But the rest of the time, they give us advice and stuff. And one of the things Larry said when he was saying this line to us, he added, always put the customer first, even if it hurts Google. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I don't know any company that would say that, right? It's like, oh yeah, put the customer first as long as it doesn't cost too much. Let me give you an example of this. Here's a good story, or something that happened 5 years ago. It turned out if you typed like sneakers into Google, you got nothing but these ad sites. It was going through, not our ad system. We try to make, these are our ads, this is organic search, and we keep the two very separated. In the organic part, we were getting a lot of links to pages that sold sneakers. And people want to know about sneakers. So it's like, we can fix this. And we did. And it cost us $500 million because those pages that we were linking to actually ended up having our ads on it. And all that revenue just dropped away. But it was the right thing to do. We didn't want Google to become just a spam engine. We wanted to give people what they're actually looking for, the real information. So always, always, always put the customer first. I mean, it seems so obvious in hindsight, but just look at every failed company you've ever seen. Did they treat you well before they went belly up? Now look at all the successful ones. How did they treat you? They treat you like a human being? Did they treat you well? Yeah, most of the successful ones do this. This is just a no-brainer. I want to give you a bit of history. So to give you just sort of a feeling. Back 3,000 years ago, we were in the Bronze Age. The most technologically advanced thing the world had was bronze. Then, 600 BC, we had the Iron Age. The most technologically advanced thing on the planet was basically lasted for 2,000 years, 2,600 years. Iron Age landed for another 2,000 years. Then we had the Industrial Revolution. That really changed our lives. I mean, when the cotton gin was invented, there was terrible problems. Obviously, all the people who picked cotton were now displaced, were out of jobs. But that engine that started is still going very strong today. Then we got to the atomic age, and now we're in the information age. 1962 was sort of the beginning of the age of the computer. And I think now we're in the automation age. We're just about to stop the information age and go the next step. That's how important I feel my message is. It actually justifies a new age. Hasn't happened yet. People aren't calling it that yet. But I can see, at least to the fact that we are now coming into a part where automation is going to be a huge part of all of our lives. So let me talk about the future. And by the way, I just want to take this moment. I'm not trying to talk any of you to work at Google or buy Google products or anything like that. The reason why I'm telling you all this stuff is because it's not just Google. It's going to be everybody. So that's the mindset you should be listening to. I'm not talking about one company. Google's probably going to be gone when you've been working for 30 years. Okay, this was a very important statement. Sundar, I should probably tell you. Google made a holding company called Alphabet. Larry and Sergey moved up to that. Sundar moved up to the CEO of Google. So right now, Sundar's our CEO. And for the whole time I've been there, they've been saying mobile first. Everything you do, think mobile. It's the future. And so that's been going on for years. And then one day, Sundar came in TGIF and said, we are now an AI first company. That shocked all of us. It's like, what? You're not pushing mobile anymore? Well, we got the mobile done. We've done that. We now have to look ahead. We're always trying to look ahead. What's coming down the road? Artificial intelligence. So that's what I want to start talking to you guys about. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Back in 1956 that we had, the Forbidden Planet with, anybody recognize that robot? Can anyone tell me that name? Oh, wow, yeah, okay, so this robot was walking, it was on TV before you guys were born, Robbie the robot, and this was probably your parents. This is a picture of your parents when they were little. They all thought, ooh, robots, it's all the future and everything. We're talking the 50s, right? This is over half a century ago. Robbie the robot could listen, he could talk, he could understand what was said in English, he could parse English, he could identify all the objects in front of him and step over them, around them. He could go up and down stairs and open closed doors. Back in the 50s, we thought that was just around the corner. And then the 60s happened and nothing. And the 70s happened and nothing. The 80s happened. We got a little bit of advances here and there where the neural net was sort of figured out, but we didn't have the horsepower. 90s, okay, we started to get the algorithms down, but the machines still weren't quite ready and we didn't really get it all together. Well, now we're there. We have made incredible strides, and all of our products, every product Google makes is going to have artificial intelligence in it. And I was going to show you a little demo of this, but the voice recognition, you guys can, you can just do it on your phone. It's amazing. You can just talk as fast as you want. It understands everything, even with noise in the background. Our ability to understand human speech has just skyrocketed in the last couple of years. If I look through all my photos, and I look for T-Rex, show me some pictures of T-Rexes, and some of them aren't. But if I look for dogs, it's amazing. There's one picture and I have, there's, what? That's not a picture of a dog. And I look closely, and the very back end, my dog butt was in the picture. And it saw that. It figured that there was a dog butt. I mean, its ability to figure out what's in the picture is just astounding. It's a very hard problem, but we've solved it. We can see stuff. And everything else is going to have machine learning in it. The Google Assistant. Okay, now, I know Jeff bragged on this a little bit. Okay, not very good at buying products. Wasn't designed for that. The Google Assistant is also in your phone. It's on your website. It's everywhere. This is just a device to make it so you don't have to actually pull out your phone. It's kind of nice. You can just talk to it. It's a portal to Google. It's a way of communicating with Google without having any other device around. But I'm not allowed to say what's being worked on. It's all obviously secret. But I can say you ain't seen nothing yet. It's just what's coming down the pipeline. I know we're probably 5 years into a 10-year effort, so I'm not going to be here next year or the year after. But the Google Assistant is going to be just what you think an assistant, a human being assistant, is today. If you had a human being beside you and you said, hey, can you do this? Can you get me that? Can you remind me of this? Can you inform me of this? I mean, it's already telling me, hey, you better leave now because the traffic's bad on the 405 freeway and you got a plane that's going to take off. It already does that stuff, but it's going to do so much more. Right now, it's got really good voice recognition, and it can tell people. If I talk to it, it knows it's me. And my wife talks to it, it gives it, like, tell me what's on my shopping list. It will give me my shopping list. Susan says the same thing, give her shopping list. Still not good enough to send email yet. We have to be absolutely sure who's talking before we can do stuff like email, so still a lot of work to be done. But this is just a little piece of hardware. The software behind it is in these gigantic computer, we have these data centers that are just unbelievable. They take 5 megawatts of power. They just go on forever. There's a football field-sized room full of computers. And when you talk to this thing, hundreds of those computers all fire up. When you type stuff onto Google, the stuff that happens under the covers is just amazing. I mean, it's an index, right? We know the answer before you ask it because last night we surfed the whole internet. We found all of these indexes. And if you type search for the worst possible thing you can do, which is is, and, that thing goes and fires up thousands of computers for you. They only run for half a second, but you just used thousands of computers in parallel. I have no idea. It's amazing what happens under the hood. But I want to tell you about machine learning. Okay, so this is not a technical talk. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of equations and stuff like that. But I do want to tell you the basic idea of machine learning. It's a pattern recognition software framework, environment, idea. It's not really done the same way most apps are. Most apps, you sit there and you write some code in C or Java or whatever. This one, you start with a big pile of data. Data. Big data. That's what you start with. So companies who are into big data already have this. We're into big data, so it works well for us. So companies who have a lot of data have food for their machine learning. And you label it. It's nice if you can get someone else to label it, but you can have people label it. And label it means, let's say we're doing pictures. Oh, this is a picture of a dog. This is a picture of a dog. This is a picture of a cat. Someone has to tell all these million pictures what they are, and you feed that into the machine learning algorithm. Then you come up with these things called features. I won't go into details on that, but you write some code that will say, pick out the brightness, where's the subject and stuff. And those features are actually used in this model. You build a thing called a model. You don't build it, it builds it. You tell it what the features are, you give it all the data, and you run it through this number cruncher that just sits there and runs for days sometimes, and it builds this model of how to identify, let's say, cats and dogs. And then you don't use all your label data for that building part. You keep 10% of it back for testing. You keep a couple of pictures of dogs and cats, and you try it. You say, what's this a picture of? It's a dog. Good. What's a picture of this? It's an elephant. No, wrong. Okay, so you go and fix your model until you get it right. Notice not a lot of coding here. A little bit of coding in the second step, but all of these things you would have no problem doing. This is not hard. This is not rocket science. Now, the machine underneath is hard to write, but it's already been written. We wrote that. But you guys can use it. Anybody can write something that uses machine learning. It's not, don't think of it as, oh, it's the future, it's much harder than the past. No. It's actually not hard at all. It's amazingly easy. So, okay, so here's one of the things I think you guys are probably saying, but how do I build Skynet? Who knows what Skynet is? Does anybody recognize that reference? Okay, who watched The Terminator, the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Okay, so Skynet was the awful computer that took over all of mankind and built the Terminator to kill people, right? This is the thing that a lot of people are worried about when you talk about artificial intelligence. And what I just told you was, well, you need millions of examples. So to take over the world, I'd have to give it millions of examples of how to take over the world. And that's how you would train your neural net. So machine learning is not ever going to be Skynet. Artificial general intelligence, that's the thing those people are worried about. It's different. It's not machine learning. Machine learning is just a bunch of matrix multiplications. AGI, and we had to put the G in there because it used to be called AI back in the 50s, but then people who made expert machines and stuff like that started to take over the term, and they said, no, we want to talk about general. General is, it's getting the machine to think like we do. It's really fundamentally different than anything that's ever happened before. It is literally doing what our brains do. And in Google, we bought this company in London called DeepMind, and I've been there. I took this picture. Beautiful place. The place these are the people doing the work. It looks very much like where I work. It's just normal people, but what they're doing is changing the world, and we're not the only ones. I want to give you this example of a video. Yeah, play on that for me. Okay, so this is Brickout. This is a game from my younger days. This is a little game where there's a little paddle at the bottom and a ball that bounces up and down. But here's the important thing about what you're about to watch. The computer was not programmed to play this game at all. Just like when you first came up to, whatever, in this case, Brickout, you didn't know how to play it. You didn't know what the score meant. That's the only thing we did for the computer. That little score at the top, we told it what that meant, but that's it. So it knew if it did well or bad. And you can see it's playing terribly here. The ball's getting missed. You can see 4 balls, 3 balls, 2 balls. Oh, he's out. Okay, 5 balls, 4 balls, 2, 3 balls. He's out. He's playing just as bad as you and I did the very first time we played this game. But then after 2 hours, it played for 2 hours like that. And now look how it's playing. Still got 5 balls left. Look at its score. Score's going up and up and up. Still got, lost one there. Still got 3 balls left. So it's doing a lot better, and it's learning this entirely by looking at the pixels. Nobody programmed this thing at all. So here it is 240 minutes later, and now it's playing at superhuman ability. It's now learned a strategy and moving faster than a human. But notice this. I don't know if any of you ever played this game. Has anybody played Brickout? Oh, cool. The way to do it is you bore a hole on the side and get the thing on the top so it bounces around. That's called a strategy. It worked that strategy out on its own. It figured out that strategy. And nobody told it. There was no sort of, somebody writing code. This is just applying a neural net to those, connecting those pixels to its input neurons. That's an amazing statement. I mean, it doesn't sound like much when you look back at the 50s and people are saying, oh, well, I expected my robot to walk and talk and step over things. Yeah, well, it can't really do that until it learns how to learn. And computers just learned how to learn. Yeah, can you hit the next button at the bottom of the screen? Mine's not working here. So here's another one. Hit play on this one. This one's a little more pertinent. Okay, well, you can read it. Okay, well, I'll just talk over it. Okay, this is not a real robot. It's a simulated robot, but the inputs to the neural net were the position of the legs and its location in the world, and they didn't teach it how to walk. They just gave it the goal to get further down. It's like the farther down the path you get, the better you are. So it's like good network, bad network. Falls down a hole, bad network, you punish it. If it actually gets over a wall, you reward the network. So just like you teach a dog or a human, or this is how we learn. Now, the holding the arm in the air, it doesn't walk like we do because it didn't realize that takes an energy to do that. But look, after a while, it's getting better and better. It knows how to now walk or lean into a turn, walk around the wall. It is literally, okay, weird things happen when you work with neural nets. You're not programming it, it's figuring this out on its own. And sometimes it doesn't always work. It's like, it makes mistakes. And, there was a little nudge. That little red thing was pushing on it, and it's trying to recover from that. Oh, didn't make it. But the neural net learned that whatever it did last time, don't do that again. Just like you did when you were a baby. You fell over, it hurt, you learned not to do that again. And that's exactly what our algorithms are doing. They're learning just the same way you learned. So here's a 4-legged animal, which actually jumps pretty well. I'm really impressed with this guy. Running around walls. I love the arms. I don't know what the arms are all about, but hey, look at this. Who walks like that? But look, probably if you let it run a little longer, give it more inputs, it probably would walk the same way we do. Okay, hit the next button. So that's sort of fun and games. That's sort of stuff we did inside. Then someone said, okay, let's take this out into the real world. Does anybody, I want to see hands. How many have heard of the game Go? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 5,000-year-old game. I think it's older than chess. Yeah, I think it is. Very popular in China and Asia. It is a very interesting game. It's a very simple game. There's only a few pieces. There's a black and white piece. You play on a 19 by 19 board, and you just play stones. And the way you determine who won is by how much area is controlled by the stones you put down. It was said that a computer will never be able to play this game because there's too many possibilities. You can't calculate it. It's not like checkers or chess, which is a game of calculation. This is a game of intuition. You ask the world's best Go players, why'd you move there? It felt right is the answer. Or it prevented this move, which felt wrong. And they can't really tell you. It's a pattern recognition thing. It runs on intuition. And so we put our neural net to test, and we've done it actually twice. We've done it the first time in 2016. We beat Lee, who's a 9-dom, which is just like the second best player in the world, and we won 4 out of 5 games, which is just astounding. But since then, we have now retrained the neural. Now we have this really great player, this thing called AlphaGo. We came up with this new one called Alpha 1, which now had no programming. The first one, we had these 2 neural nets and this search tree algorithm, and people spent a lot of time training it and working on it and coding it. Then we said, hey, look, why don't we just try the same thing you saw with that breakout game? Let's just let it see what's happening. Let it play a million games and see what happens. And it's gotten so good now, it's as good or better than the one that beat Lee. And it had no human training at all. So, okay, there we go. Okay, so now, go back. So now, is Skynet inevitable? Are we all doomed? Is this computer going to grow and take over all of us? We might be worried about the wrong thing. This is my, you shouldn't be scared of ghosts when there's a robber in your house, okay? There are problems that need to be solved, but Skynet is not it. But I'll tell you why everybody thinks it is. It's because it makes a really good story. We have had computers killing people since 1880, since before the computer. It was called Frankenstein back in those days, but still it was a man-made creation who grows up and takes over everybody. And just every year we had Big Brother, and we had HAL, and we got Skynet. We even have in a kids movie, WALL-E, Otto, the autopilot that runs the ship is bad, and he takes over. And we've been watching this ever since you were a little kid. You've been watching computers built by humans taking over and killing all the humans. And so we've all been pre-programmed to worry about this. And it's good, we should, but don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's a lot of good things about it that we should focus on. And not everybody predicted this horrible future with computer AIs. Back in 1962, a cartoon called The Jetsons. Anybody ever seen The Jetsons? Oh, that's great. Boy, okay, so that's cool that comes around again. This was a very positive view of the future. They had a lot of things right. They weren't trying to predict the future. They just had, what would the future look like if everything's happy and fun? They had digital watches, computers, but they had Rosie the robot. Was Rosie a good or a bad robot? Good, right? Rosie took care of the kids. She did all the work, sweeping up after everybody, never hurt a fly, right? So there were some predictions of the future. And it turns out that the positive predictions of the future are coming true at a fantastic rate, and the negative ones, like 1984. Did 1984 happen? I mean, 1984 came and went, and I didn't see any Big Brother. So the movies and the TV shows and all the hype around real negativity around AI, it's really great fiction. It makes a great story. It's a terrible prediction of the future. So this was one of my favorite scenes. I love this. Oh, these 3-hour workdays are killing me. That's an amazing prediction about the future, by the way. I thought that showed a lot of insights. So why am I telling you all this? Let's go. I want to talk about this. 20 years ago, if you told me the largest taxi cab in the country owns no taxis, the largest hotel company owns no hotels, the largest retail outlets has no stores, and the largest advertising company doesn't advertise in magazines, radio, TV, or anything that we were advertising, newspapers, all the stuff we were advertising back in the old days. The world has changed a lot in the last 20 years. The Ubers, the Airbnb, the Amazons have just transformed the working world. So, problems that we do have to worry about. We get machine biases. I won't go into that. You can have physical safety problems, right? A robot, a self-driving car, whatever, can hurt people, so we got to worry about that. But skill evolution is the one I want to concentrate on. You guys have the skills. I want to introduce you to our self-driving car. This is a cute little car. We actually built ourselves, built 100 of these to test our code. Actually, if you can hit play on this, this is a video I shot myself. So I was up in Mountain View, and I thought people might want to see what's actually driving around up there. That's me, that's my coworker, and that's a self-driving car. That car has no steering wheel, no brake, no gas pedal. There is no controls on it. It's much more like an elevator. You tell it where you want to go, and it takes you there. Very simple. It's a superb driver. It has a LiDAR system on the top. It's got 4 more around the edges. It's got 4 radars. It has a computer that's so fast in it, they call it the BFC. It's incredibly complex. The software that goes into this is amazing. But that shot that you saw a second ago was driving around a bicycle. It comes to a complete stop. It drives exactly in the center of the lane. It's just a perfect driver. By the way, I drove here in a self-driving car. It drove 80% of the time, and it was a terrible driver. So not all cars are at this level. Google is not launching their self-driving car until it is safe, unlike the car I'm driving. It's very close to being safe. We've been at this for 10 years. It was probably safe 3 years ago, but we just want to be absolutely sure it works in every possible situation. And here's the first version that you guys might actually interact with. The company's called Waymo. It's going to be very much like Uber. You buy the ride. You tell it where you want to go. A car shows up with nobody in it. You step inside. The door, you close the door, off it goes, drops you off from door to door, and it charges your cell phone charges. Nobody has talked about price yet. It's a great held secret, but from outside the company, people have estimated this will be about 1/4 the cost of Uber. So if a taxi costs you $20 for that ride, Uber's about $10, this will be $2.50. And the interesting thing is, that's about as much gas as an SUV takes. As much money as the gas for an SUV, because this one's gas, but they'll be electric, and they'll save money on the energy by going to electric. And so therefore, for what you're currently paying on gas for a big gas guzzler, you could get the whole ride. So we think this might change transportation. Why own a car? Because it's cheaper, it's faster, it's easier. You don't have to park it, you don't have to maintain it, you don't have to pay for insurance. You're not responsible in an accident. It's just got everything going for it. Tesla's working on a self-driving truck. It's great. You don't have to touch anything. It still has controls in it because there's still truck drivers inside of it. But how long do we need the driver, right? If it's doing all the driving, why don't we have a driver to load it up, and then you send it from New York to Los Angeles, and then when you get the other end, you have a driver park it or something like that, and then meanwhile, you get rid of the driver. Anybody see a problem with that? There's 25 million drivers in America. We have taxi drivers, bus drivers, train drivers, combine drivers. There are 25 million people who drive stuff. These drivers will not build the self-driving car, truck, combine, train. Computer scientists will. People like me, inside of Google, will be doing that. And so what happens to all those jobs? We're going to replace truck driving jobs with programming jobs. Okay, that's a bit of a problem, but this has happened before. Take the Industrial Revolution. In 1840 in America, 70% of the people who lived in the United States had something to do with agriculture. 70%. You either growed it, you moved it, you had something to do with farms. That's been dropping continuously, slowly. And that's the important part. It's now down to 4%. 4% of our population has something to do with agriculture today. But then look how long it took. And that's why we don't have 66% unemployment right now, right? I mean, those 66% of the people that used to be working in agriculture are now doing something else. They found jobs. So good, okay, great. So people do change their skills, they learn, they switch, they adapt. But that happened over a long period of time. So I found this interesting article in the Oxford University, whatever, there's a link down there. About half the jobs in America right now are automatable. Okay, that's astounding statement in 20 to 30 years. So you'll be well into your career at this point. So this is my warning to you guys. There's another interesting thing. We need to get more productive in 30 years, except for Africa. Don't look at Africa for a second. Just look at all the rest of the world, including China. In 30 years, the average age will be 60. In other words, retired or about to retire. Half the people will be retired in 30 years. So that means the rest of the people are going to have to do all the work that everybody's doing now. There's a lot of work to be done. And even right now, to this day, there are more job openings than ever. At Google, we can never hire enough people. There's always a help wanted sign. We just want to get more and more people in those doors as we possibly can. We need people who have the skill set. And that's the problem. That's why we don't. America doesn't produce enough of them. On my team, 2/3 of the people around me are not from this country. You know, Russia, it's just everywhere. We got, you name a country, I've got somebody near me who came from there is working at it, because we're just not pumping out enough technical people. That's a problem. So another way to look at this is we actually need artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's not an option. It's how you guys are going to retire. The world is going to be run by this automation, which is going to pay for your Social Security, you know, in a long time from now. But still, the point is we got to be more productive so that we all have a better life. We all want to have nicer everythings, and that needs to be produced. And so that's going to happen through automation. We're going to raise everybody's standard of living through this. So, okay, now, I know I'm not talking to a technical crowd, and I am not trying to convince you guys to become an engineer. I want to be very clear about this. But my vision of the future is that today, a retail person sells stuff. In the future, retail people will be automating the process of selling. Lawyers will be automating the process of doing lawyer work. Doctors will be automating medical care. You know, salespeople will be automating sales. Just your job will change. Just over time, the job will just start to have more and more of your responsibility. We'll be getting a machine to do what you used to do. This is just normal. This is just nobody's going to think this is weird in the future. But you can say, I remember back 30 years ago when this guy named Anthony told me it was going to be like this. I never thought it was going to happen, but it is. It's going to happen. I mean, things are going to be very different. Package delivery, Google has a drone too. This is somebody else's. Package delivery is not going to be done by a person in a truck driving a 5,000-pound truck to your house and dropping something on your front porch. That's just insane. It's just far too expensive, very slow. This guy can deliver your package in 15 minutes. When you buy something on the internet right now, you say, hit the buy button, package shows what? It shows up in about 2 days, 3 days, sometimes a week. How about you click the buy button and it's on your front porch in 15 minutes for half the price? That's really cool, right? So stuff like that is going to happen because remember, follow the money. If it's cheaper, it will happen. This is cheaper. This is a cheaper way to deliver stuff. What about cooking? Oh, surely we're going to cook the same way. We've eaten the same way for millions of years. Let me show you this neat little video that I came across. And actually, you can turn up the volume on this one. So this is a person's house. This is not computer graphics. This is an actual machine. So that's an expert cook training the machine. So the arms follow the expert's moves. Cleans up after itself, puts the pan away. That's a real product. Hasn't launched yet, launched next year. But there's nothing in there that's, to me, as a technologist, everything in there is totally obvious. As a matter of fact, I was very disappointed to hear that it's only following an actual person's arms. When it's doing all that cooking, it's just doing what somebody else told it to do to the level of where to put your fingers. it's only going to be a few years after that where it's going to figure out how to cook. It's going to figure out what you like. It's going to give you 2 dishes and ask you which one you like better, and it's slowly going to adapt to the stuff you like to eat. So that's where I want you guys to start thinking. That's the future you're going to be working in. Okay, what about travel? Travel might be a little different. Can you hit play on this one? So this is a SpaceX video that was just released a couple of weeks ago, a month ago. So here we are in New York, and these people here want to travel to, I can't remember, was it Singapore? Where is it now boarding? Shanghai. Okay, so we're in New York. We want to be in Shanghai in 39 minutes. So you take this boat. I'm not sure the boat ride is included in that 39 minutes. Out to a platform out in the ocean. A very big rocket. About 200 people load up into the nozzle, top end. It reaches launch velocities. By the way, it's the same picture if you're going to Mars. This is built for Mars. Matter of fact, it's built for Mars, and he said, hey, you could also use it for getting around the Earth quickly. So this is actually an afterthought. The lifter goes back and gets reused. Everything gets reused on SpaceX. 39 minutes later, you're landing in Shanghai. Again, nothing about this is against today's technology. All the components in there, the rocket engines, the tanks, there's these very high-tech carbon tanks. Look at the speeds here. Everything, you pretty much get anywhere to anywhere in 30 minutes around the world. This is the future you guys are going to be living and working in, okay? This is where I want to get you to change your view of your career. Make sure your career is compatible with that. Cars. Here's another one. This is not Google. This is Mercedes, I think. But I thought this was an excellent vision of what the future looks like. That awesome view that I can see in my head looks a lot like this. Everything's very clean. This particular car has a steering wheel. I think they blew it. I don't think by the time we get to this level you'll even need a steering wheel. Touch screens everywhere. Since the car is doing the driving, you can now do all the things you're doing right now. Texting, taking phone calls, shaving, putting on your makeup. All those stuff that you're doing right now at great cost to your own personal safety, you can now do absolutely safely. So I thought the background was pretty cool too. Yeah, high density, but lots of growy things. All looks clean. It's a very positive view of the future. And I'm going to bet on this view of the future, not the Terminator view of the future. This is probably what you guys are going to be working in. You're certainly going to have a cell phone. Okay, this is concentrating a lot on the self-driving car with this little projector in the front. But what I'm trying to do here is get you to think of a world that's not like today. Because just like today is not like it was 30 years ago. There was no internet 30 years ago. There was no computers 30 years ago. When I got my first computer in 1978, a TRS-80, I made a prediction that someday, in the next 20 years, everybody will have a computer. And people said, you mean computer scientists will all have computers? No, everyone will have a computer. We'll all walk around with computers in our pocket, or at least have one at home. And people were like, oh, you're crazy. In 1978, that was a crazy, ludicrous idea, and it's here. And so now I've seen that. I've seen the world change from no one having a computer to everyone having a computer. And all I can tell you is the change is accelerating. We have more people on the planet now using better tools than we had back then. So technology is going to push forward faster than it has in the past. And you got to take that into account when you're listening, when you're thinking about your careers. So there's my view of the future. Okay, can you hit the next? Okay, so this is my sort of warning or message. This is the heart of my message. Don't be on the wrong side of the digital divide. We see today this cavern between our population, the people who know and the people who don't know anything about technology. The people who don't know anything about technology are probably going to be hurt by the new advancements. You guys are already on the right side because you're young. You've already got cell phones. You've already learned technology. But what I'm going to ask you to do is push it a little further. Just be just darn sure you're a little more technically savvy than the people around you. I'll get more on that in a second. So basically I'm saying be careful. I don't want any of you to ever say, oh, I don't need to know anything about technology because I'm going to be a fill in the blank, right? I don't know what you're going to be, but you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be in retail, and retail doesn't use computers. Yeah, today, maybe even in 10 years, but in 20 years, I can promise you, whatever you fill in the blank, it's going to be using computers. I saw a trash truck with a computer in it. I want to tell you a story. It's about a person who graduated from Yale Law School, prestigious Ivy League school, very smart person. Didn't take a single technology class. This person said, I don't need to know it. I'm going to be a politician, and politicians don't need to know about technology. I'll hire someone to do it. And they did, and they were mostly right. They went through their job, became a state senator, hired people to handle all technology, but they couldn't hire someone to read and write their emails. So they had a BlackBerry, so they used that until it got old. And then they got another one, exactly the same. Didn't like technology, didn't want to learn the new thing, continued to use the same technology they were used to. That one bore out. They couldn't even find another one of them, but they did. Someone scrounged one up on eBay. They're now using the same phone for, 10 years. Where's the email being served? Well, wherever it goes, whatever it's, I don't care. Just use the server in the basement. And just continue to use whatever was easiest. Didn't want to think about it. Oh, your emails aren't encrypted. What's that? Well, you could use this machine over here to do your emails. Oh, I'm not familiar with that. I don't want to use that. Well, this person made some mistakes. She admits it. There's an 800-page document that points out the mistakes. She put her country at risk, not intentionally, by accident. She didn't know that she should watch over every last email on the server. She didn't know it needs to be encrypted. She didn't know it needs to be physically locked down. She didn't know about hackers. She wasn't interested in technology. Well, that person could have been the President of the United States right now if it wasn't for that mistake, which was probably due to not caring about technology. Okay, so back when she was in college, when she said, I don't care about technology, she was probably right, but be careful. Just be careful. Don't just assume you don't need to know anything about technology, because it can come along and bite you. Let me give you an example. AdWords. So I said we're an advertising company, and one of the, oh, wow, how much time do I have? Okay, right. Sorry, I just realized I talk too much. I apologize. AdWords. This is how all small companies sell their stuff. If you want to sell, more of whatever you sell, get an AdWords account, right? So as I said, 200 million people. 2 million advertisers use this. You said, I want to spend $50 a month, and then people come to your website. So we have this thing called AdWords scripts. It's where you can write some code, because AdWords is all about bidding on numbers. You say, I want to bid on some term. Someone's going to type a term into Google, and I say, oh, I'll pay $1. For anybody who types on that, I want them to come to my website. So I'm going to bid this amount. Well, a solid bid amount of $1 just doesn't make sense. If you were there as a person, you'd say, well, right now it should be higher. To be lower. So we allow this thing called scripts. Nobody uses it because people aren't technical enough to write a script. But however, this greatly increases their return on investment. We have this whole thing on, you can monitor your return on investment. That's one really great thing about Google. You can totally see every time you make money, if you can tell the computer about it, it tells you exactly for every dollar you spent, how many dollars of sales you got. And nobody uses it because the world isn't technical enough. It's a great opportunity, yet it just sits there unused. So Google's noticed this. They see this changing world, new technology, and they see this problem, this truck driver problem, this 25 million people are about to lose their job in a faster period than those agricultural people did. And so they're going to put $1 billion, $1 billion with a B, so remember this is an amount that's a lot even for Google, into training people. They just announced it a couple of weeks ago in Pittsburgh. Sundar just told the world in the next 5 years, Google is going to basically give away over the next 5 years, $1 billion to train people. Grow with Google is the program. We're going to teach teachers and students, teach everybody we possibly can the skills they're going to need for the future world. It shows you how much, Google believes in this future. It's a good future. Everything's great except for the skill set problem. We got to get everybody to learn the new skill sets. So what is the solution? You've got to prepare yourself for the world you guys are going to be working in your career, okay? Well, okay, so how do you do that? The more you learn about something, the better you get at it. And the better you get at it, the more fun you have. Literally, you have fun with this stuff. And the more fun you have with it, the more time you spend with it. And the more time you spend, the more you learn. And you get into the snowball. This is why the digital divide. The people who just played with it started learning, having fun, spending more time learning, having fun. And the people who never touched it never started down the hill. So they're still as everybody was. So try to be curious and interested in technology. I know that's kind of a broad statement. This is a way to just sort of play with it if you were much younger than you are. But I love this thing. This is from MIT. It's called Scratch. It's a little programming language where you can literally write games with this thing. I saw a really good implementation of Pac-Man with it. But it's pictorially programmed. There's little icons you can drag around, and you can move this little cat around to start with. But in the end, you can play music and videos and all sorts of stuff. This is a fun little pastime. There's a sort of more serious version of this by Google called Made with Code. And it's also dragging around those same little blocks, but it's more geared towards people who are a little older. So this might be something that you guys might want to try. Made with Code is something you might spend a few days at, and that's it. It's not a huge development environment. This is a nice little app. You can program patterns on the skirt, this wearable device. Here's a video that I came across. And turn the volume up on this.
I'm Justine, and today we are going to be making something really fun with Google's Made with Code. I have been obsessed with tech pretty much since I've been very, very young. And back then, it wasn't something that I felt was as common as it is now. I was the only girl in my coding classes. I felt like I was sort of the outcast, but now it's incredible to see a lot of girls getting into this because it's something that is so fun, and I think a lot of people just sort of are afraid of it, but you should embrace it, especially if it's something that you really, really love. So I'm going to be coding something, and then this right here is a ripple maker. Can you see this drink right here? We're going to be printing the emoji that I just coded onto the drink. It's gonna be incredible. So let's get started. First, we're at madewithcode.com. In the emoji project, we're gonna drop the emoji object into place, scroll down to our character, drop her in, and then you're presented with a bunch of different options. A movie clapper, that's mine. There she is. Time to print. Let's go. Oh my goodness. This is so amazing. Wait, it's done? Technology. And it tastes good too. So what we just did is we coded an emoji, and that was fun and cool, and it actually wasn't scary at all. So you should enjoy it.
Yeah, so that's an example of actually hooking up a physical device to it. So that's just something you could do for fun and play with it. But really, the thing you should at least be aware of, so you don't have to actually do these yourself, but just know they're out there. If you see anything that says machine learning, it's a job that has that either going on in the company, I just want you to know what it is. So it's basically a neural net. That's the same thing in your head. It's a bunch of neurons connected together by axons, but it's done digitally. And Google has this API called TensorFlow. So that is sort of for technical people. So I'm not telling you to go out and learn TensorFlow. But people who do learn this are able to find amazing patterns in things. So if you start a company, if you can hire someone who knows how to do this, they can find patterns like, how to sell more stuff. It's like, oh, look, when we do this, we get more, sales, and that's a pattern that you guys recognize, you can use TensorFlow to actually figure those patterns out for you on a much bigger basis. So my final recommendation is be one of the more technologically focused people in your class. So just when somebody asks somebody a technology question in whatever group you're in, be the one giving the answer, not the one asking the question. Well, I mean, you should ask questions, but I mean, try to just be a little more, have more knowledge of technology than half the people around you. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking you to learn how to code or anything like that, but don't be afraid of it. Dive in. So for instance, like if you're in a sewing class, use the programmable sewing machine. We got one at work. It's really cool. If you're in a wood class, use the 3D printer or the CNC machine. Learn how to program these things. If you're in retail and sales, build a model to learn how to predict customer behavior. The future looks really awesome, and I don't want to ever leave you guys with a feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss the train. No, you are on the train. You all are already more technologically advanced than most of the people in the United States. So you're fine, and the world looks great. It really does. I think you're going to really love the future. So I just wanted to leave you with just be sure that you watch your level of technology. Try to have more technology, not less. Thank you very much.
Anthony, thank you. You guys have any questions for Anthony?